3 News Now this week.
Several families lost their home in an apartment fire in Bellevue yesterday. The building in the Fontanelle Hills apartment complex is said to be a total loss and will be demolished according to the Bellevue Fire Department. The fire started around noon yesterday and fire crews did not leave the scene until 8 hours later. At this time, authorities believe the fire was started when someone failed to properly dispose of smoking materials. With the windy weather, the fire spread to the attached building and the roof eventually collapsed. Police arrived on scene shortly after the fire began and were able to evacuate everyone inside safely. The Red Cross is working with those who were displaced, and today some residents were on scene trying to locate animals who had been left inside and are reaching out on social media to find their pets. We were told one dog was able to get onto the balcony during the fire and escaped with a burned nose.
Landlords across the country have started the eviction process early, despite an active federal moratorium due to the pandemic. One Omaha family says they are up to date on rent, yet their landlord, William Stanek, is not renewing their lease and is evicting them. 3 News Now reporter Kent Lutzen was in the courtroom when the judge finalized the paperwork and has more on their situation. Kent?
Good morning, Jenny. For the last 2 weeks, we've shined a light on the loophole Omaha landlord William Stanek is using to continue evicting tenants from his apartment building on Jones Street. Instead of evicting a tenant because of unpaid rent, which is not allowed, Stanek is removing renters because their leases were up and he decided not to renew them. Now, his latest victim, Mary Miller, and her family were in this loophole. They're caught in this loophole with the eviction finalized on Tuesday in the courtroom. Stanek gave Miller a 30-day notice to leave after she made complaints to the city about the condition of the apartment. Also, now you can see in these pictures some of those complaints. Now there's water damage, leaking ceilings, holes in the walls, missing smoke and carbon monoxide detectors, as well as doors that were never installed or not installed properly. The difference in this case compared to others we've shared is the Miller family is current on their rent. That's according to Legal Aid of Nebraska attorneys. The family wants to stay and pay rent as they have no other place to go if evicted. Now, in fear of not being able to find other housing, the family chose not to be on camera during their interview, but here's a portion of what they had to say.
The back door wasn't even on. I had to put that on myself because we had the door kicked in 6 times because the door was so weak.
First night we moved in, got kicked in.
And I'm just lucky I was there, to shoo them back out of there. The mice there are so bad that we have caught over, 50 mice since we've lived there.
The bugs are nasty too. They're terrible.
It's just terrible. It bugs everywhere. I mean, we can't get rid of them. I mean, we tried everything and we just can't get rid of them.
I asked why they chose to live in the apartment if the conditions were so rough, but something we have to realize is that, Miller says the landlord accepts general assistance, and the pair were trying to get back on their feet after one of them was left disabled right before the pandemic hit. Now, again, we reached out to Mr. Stanek, and he has not returned our phone calls. Chief City Housing Inspector Scott Lane says 9 out of the 12 apartments in Stanek's building currently have an open violation case. In the newsroom, Kent Lutzen, 3 News Now.
There's been times that people don't take me particularly seriously because I'm a woman. There'll be people that come into the shop and ask where my boss is and are surprised to learn that we are woman-owned.
Katina Talley was one of very few women food scientists. Recently, she has seen a shift in more women in STEM fields. She opened her own bakery in Omaha a few years ago and is excited to be a part of a sisterhood of women supporting women.
A lot of times, society tries to pit us against each other and make us think that other women are competition, and I just think the absolute opposite is true, that the more we support each other, the more we grow and the more we thrive.
About 80% of her customers are women, as well as most of her employees. Sweet Magnolia's Bakery supports a nonprofit every month, and for some customers, that is what brings them in.
I choose to support Sweet Magnolias because it is a women-owned business that is all about social justice and giving back to the Omaha community.
Sweet Magnolias has 2 core principles when creating baked goods: authenticity and inclusivity.
So the authenticity piece kind of feeds into that everything's from scratch, real fat, real sugar, no replacements. We don't count calories. We're very unapologetically indulgent. And then inclusivity is making sure that there's something for everybody. So we do make gluten-free goods, we make vegan goods, and we want them to be delicious and just as indulgent and just as much of a treat as our traditional goods.
Until the end of the month, 100% of the proceeds from their unicorn bars will support the Omaha Women's Fund and Women Who Run Nebraska. Ariana Martinez, 3 News Now.
There was some confusion today over who is eligible for a vaccine and who isn't in Douglas County. It involves reports of telecommunications companies vaccinating all their employees even though they do not belong in the critical infrastructure utility category. Governor Ricketts is calling it a big mistake. 3 News Now reporter Ruta Alcenaida joins us live from the newsroom. Ruta, what's the county saying?
Yeah, Courtney, well, the Douglas County Health Department says it's a big misunderstanding and that they were initially under the impression that those that worked in telecommunications did fall into the critical infrastructure category and that they're not the only local health department that thought that.
Going to be vulnerable. That's a huge mistake on Douglas County's part.
Governor Ricketts expressing his frustration Friday after reports surfaced of telecommunication companies like Cox fully vaccinating their employees in Douglas County.
We told them weeks ago that telecoms are not part of utilities, and for whatever reason, they decided to go forward with telecom companies that is outside the guidelines. They're making a mistake, and that's actually taking away vaccines from those vulnerable people we're trying to focus on.
On the state's website at the end of February, they had prioritized critical infrastructure in Group 1B of vaccinations. According to the Department of Homeland Security, critical infrastructure workers includes those in communications and information technology. But now the state has updated their prioritization list to be more specific when mentioning critical infrastructure, labeling only utility workers like those working with power, water, and gas, and not telecommunication workers. Douglas County says that update is where the miscommunication happened, and that other health departments are in fact vaccinating those workers as well.
Well, we're following up with Douglas County with regard to why they decided to go outside the guidelines to do telecom workers. I think it was a misunderstanding on their part.
Douglas County says not all of their appointments are being filled up, so they have been expanding vaccinations, saying, quote, "We will leave no vaccine on the shelf and strive to fill every available clinic appointment." Most of the state is expanding vaccination efforts starting Monday. And in a statement provided to 3 News Now, Cox says they support the Department of Homeland